I wanted to finish off with the grand finale. And I just really want to talk about some lessons that Luke learned on his journey in this season that he's in. And how does that apply to you? Well, I think a couple things. I think maybe you've bought your first camera. I said early on in our conversation that I've learned so much from Luke and Ashley. I've learned so much about how to operate this. I'll be honest, this journey wouldn't be possible, this 365-day journey, without you guys, because I wouldn't know half the stuff I know about operating the camera I have. And it's leveled up as I went, and I'm always texting him for questions about going through it. So I thought, what has he learned over the last 14 years that might be helpful for you if you want to go on a video journey, or if you want to go on a photo journey, and maybe he could help us shortcut some of those learnings. So Luke, 14 years, photo video, somebody might have bought their first camera, or they're just jumping on the photo video journey. What's one thing you learned along the way?
Just stop now.
Just stop now, put the camera down. Put the camera down. It's a long journey.
No, I would say number one, find education and just dive into it. YouTube is going to provide all that easily. There's people that have courses. You know, we've got a few courses, different things. It just depends on what you're interested in, but there's so much YouTube content that's out there that you could just pick a path and find different creators and learn everything you need to. So,
which probably wasn't the case 14 years ago when you got started, right?
No.
I mean, there was no jumping online and figuring out the things you needed to figure out.
Not the way it is now, no. There was other smaller forms of it, but nothing like it is now.
Now, I mean, you really could jump on YouTube and get all the fundamentals. Like you could get all of the basics down.
Everything.
You could buy a course and go in a sequential order and get all the basics ready to go, so you could take your camera and go jump out there into the world.
Yep.
But you've got to choose to step into the education. You got to choose to set aside time to really start learning, and then go execute and implement that.
Yep.
Okay, so take advantage of education. What else would you say?
We mentioned it last episode, finding a mentor, you know, finding that photographer or videographer that you want to emulate or just glean from, and follow them around on shoots, learn how they do and approach things. There's nothing like learning from a real world example. Because then you got customers that they're interacting with. You can see how they interact with things, lighting scenarios. You know, how did they approach this? You know, things that can't really be taught or recreated in a sense, to educate that person. So just find people, follow them, emulate them, ask them all the questions, buy them coffee. You know, maybe take them to dinner and thank them for the time. Or even ask them if they have mentor sessions and then pay for that. You got to invest into yourself. So
again, you got to see it before you can seize it. If this is what you want to do, you got to go find somebody who's good at it.
Yeah.
And that's not only photo, video, that's anything in life, right? You got to find somebody who's already doing what you're doing and then follow in their footsteps. I think that's the value of what you're saying there too, is shadowing, because you can only learn so much on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's only a one-sided relationship there. You're just consuming, but when you get in contact with somebody who's doing what you're doing, now you can engage and ask questions and find out the why behind what they're doing, which is going to speed up your journey. So that's important. So you want to seek out the education, get the fundamentals. You want to find a mentor, somebody that you can shadow. What's one more? What's one more that we can do?
Don't get caught up in the comparison trap.
Yeah.
That's going to be the thing that's going to break anyone, regardless of what business or journey that you're taking in life. We did a whole podcast episode on our podcast on comparison. I'll have to link it or somehow give it to you.
Yeah, we'll put it right down there in the description.
Somewhere. But that right there will be the thing that kills somebody faster than anything, is because you start getting good, or you start developing, you start producing some content, and then you're like, then you see, you know, someone else that's new or in the same path as you are, same journey, same time frame. You're like, wait a minute, their work looks a little bit better. I haven't heard of this person. Then you start chasing them down, and you're looking them up, and you're trying to figure out what they're doing. And then you see another one, you start chasing that person. And then next thing you know, you're like, am I even good? Or is my work even that great? Or why am I doing this? Or why can't I be better? You know, why am I not? And then all of a sudden that new photographer, you know, whatever, 2-3 years into it, and same as you might be or newer, all of a sudden in the wedding industry, books a wedding and they're going to, you know, Mexico or something like that. And they're like, how did that happen? You know, like I'm just, you know, like how did they find that person? And understanding that the clients that come into you and is all random. It's completely random. And so you can't control who you get that books you. And I mean, yes, you can down the road. That's some stuff that we can talk about, finding your ideal client. But those that come into you, it's all random. And so they have different needs or different wants, or they want to go to Mexico. Like we're going to Italy in May for our first European wedding in 14 years. But there's been others that are newer at this business than we are that have already been over there many times.
Right.
But we have a family, and some of those people are, single individuals or single girls or guys that are doing it. So there's so many different life combinations and things that set up those people to get ahead, or you to get ahead, or you to go slow. And so in that whole podcast episode, we break down a fantastic analogy on how people travel or go through this life journey of comparison and how to avoid it and stuff. So
yeah, I think it's important on two different areas. I think you brought up both. One is somebody's just a little bit ahead of the journey, or they're like on the same parallel track you're on, but they have different types of experiences. You don't know everything that's going on behind the scenes. And you're offered opportunities that they don't have, and they're going to be offered opportunities you don't have. And if you're stuck staring at them, you're not going to see the opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? That's a problem. Yeah. But then on the other side of that is comparing your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 20.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I remember when I was coming to you and I was like, hey, I'm starting to make some YouTube videos. How do I get them to look like Peter McKinnon's videos? That's like my chapter 2 to his chapter 222. Yeah. Right? He's much further down. And mine are just not as cool. But that's okay, and you always kept reminding me, you're on your own journey. Just make the next one better. Just make the next one better. Just fiddle with this and move here and try this and problem solve over here, so that every time you get a little bit better. And I think that's one of the keys that we have to keep us out of the comparison trap. We got to keep that close to say, I'm not up against them, I'm up against me. Mm-hmm. And over the 14 years, if we were to look at your journey through photo video, it probably looks, and I gave this analogy on one of the other interviews, it probably looks like a yo-yo on an escalator. There's this up and down going on, but it's slowly going up and up and up, and you're much further than
that's
where you
called the
started
stock market, all right? No.
Yeah, you know.
That's called crypto, no.
That's right. I gave that part of the analogy, which is so important. Don't focus on the yo-yo. Focus on the escalator. Make the needed changes to get up a floor higher. I think that's very important. One more thing before we wrap up. Who are a couple influences? We talked about seeing it before you seize it. In your line of work and photo, video, who are a couple influences that you really focus on and pay attention to?
At the time?
Yeah, like right now. Like if
right now?
Yeah, if you're watching YouTube, if you're looking at who are
I don't look at anybody. No, it's kidding. I don't know.
Got a few people that you like their style or like what they do?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, like in the early years, yeah, there was people that we were trying to emulate big time. So a big photographer in our local area, which is like an hour and a half away from us, was Caitlin James. And that's where we got caught up in a big comparison trap, because everybody in this area in the U.S., and she's very big, very, very popular in what she does, wanted to be like her. So like everyone was shooting the same way and different things like that. And then eventually we were like, we can't follow her anymore, because we got so deep into that comparison trap that like it screwed us up. Because every conversation that we had at the time was like, well, Caitlin James is doing it this way, and her husband Michael, and like, what, we can do it this way. We just couldn't. They didn't have kids. Now they've got kids, and they're not shooting. Like, she does major education, but like they're not shooting like we are, you know. So it's like you were talking about a second ago, our story is different, our path is different. We started our photo business with 3 kids, 2.5, 3 kids, and then we've worked our way up now to where our kids are older and they don't have to go with us on all these different things. Whereas she didn't have any kids and they can go full throttle into doing all this stuff. Now they've got kids and they've transitioned and they've done some things well. So there's pros and cons on both sides of that, and those different journeys. So she was a big one, but I haven't followed her or Michael in 4 years, probably 4 or 5 years, if not longer. No clue what they're doing. And so that helps us stay focused on the journey that we need to be on and for our life, because it's different. And then now to be honest, I don't really, I go on YouTube and I'll watch creators do things, but there's not somebody that I'm like daily always looking at and trying to do that. Because again, that comparison, especially when it comes to shooting videos and us trying to even ourselves do our own YouTube channel, it's like, I'm still getting caught up on like the background, like how's it going to look back here, or what, because you want it to look a certain way and you want it to look professional because you see others on YouTube and different things doing it that way. But most people just got to realize it's not the camera, it's not the look, it's the content, it's the story that's being told. That's the most important thing. And so if you can capture that, that's all that matters. No one necessarily is going to remember like, oh, there was a streak of light coming in. You guys are looking at the confidence monitor, like coming in this way, and we got some trees back here. Like, we just had some fun with the set. They're going to care about what the content was, and that's what they're going to remember. It's the content.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
You can get so caught in the comparison trap that you worry about everything and you don't focus on the content.
And you don't do anything.
Or you don't do anything,
Yeah.
right? Which is super important.
Yeah.
You just keep putting it off and putting it off because it's not like them.
Yeah.
So I think that's very valuable. I think you also have to know your personality, right? You have to know your personality because sometimes we can hyper focus on something like you're talking about right there, and then we start comparing everything to it. And then some personalities you might be able to just glance and say, oh, this person, I'm getting a little here, I'm getting a little bit of there. It all depends on where you're at in your journey. Anything else you want to tell them before we wrap up?
Just going back to the comparison, everyone is implementing or emulating someone else. There's I think now in today's generation, this is just an opinion, that could be wrong or right. There's very little original content left. I think. I don't know. There could be. I don't know. But everyone, especially when it comes to the YouTube creator side, and you're trying to do something, that creator implemented from that creator. I think Peter McKinnon is a huge accelerator for all of that.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to look like somebody, and then they do their own version of that. But you come in, you're like, well, I want to be like this guy, but you're just copying the same thing that other person does. Like, learn to just blaze your own trail. And that was something that we had to figure out when we stopped following Caitlin James and such at the time, is like, our journey's different, and it's gonna look different because of how our life journey is. And we don't have all these different things. We're not her, we're not in these situations. So how can we be unique in the way that we do things? We can adopt ideologies and some thought processes, but it has to be true to us, and it has to be, a reflection of us in that regard. So.
Yeah, it makes me think of public speaking. One of the things I'm passionate about is taking the stage in public speaking. And if you watch one speaker for an entire month and then you go deliver a speech, you're going to sound exactly like that person, right? Because that's all you've surrounded yourself with. But if you pull these little samples on, I like this, eventually you're going to end up finding your own voice. Yeah. You're going to find your own delivery method. So same thing for here. You're pulling from successes that you see to kind of come up with, how does Luke and Ashley Brands see it? What's your own creative, artistic look at this, at a project or at some content that you're creating? Yeah. I think that is very valuable. And you can't really rush finding that voice because there's a lot, we've already talked about this through all of our conversation, the failures, the areas that we feel like we're not complete in, that's all going to teach us a lesson on exactly what our voice, right? Exactly what our creativity looks like. So you can't rush the process. Yeah. Process is the point. Well, I've enjoyed our conversation. Why don't you tell them where they could find you? Like, where can they find Luke if they want to learn more about you and Ashley's brand and all the stuff you're doing?
I'm right here. No.
For now.
You can find us at wearelukeandashley.com. That is our umbrella site that will take you to all of our different offerings or different businesses that we do. But Luke and Ashley, if you just look up Luke and Ashley Photography, you should be able to run into us. But and then on YouTube, there's 2 Luke and Ashley Photography channels. I got kicked out of one. It's a whole nother thing. But look for the one that has the least subscribers to it. That's our current active channel.
It won't be that way for long, all right? Get on the front end.
Yeah, it's a whole nother story. But anyways, yeah. So Luke and Ashley Photography or lukeandashley.com or we are lukeandashley.com. And then that will take you to everything that we have. And then you can click around and go from there.
All right, we're excited to see this first European wedding. It's going to be a blast. And
yeah.
I'm sure that all the behind the scenes content is going to be awesome as well. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys tomorrow.